This is Biology, Module 10B. I'm going to try to go really fast. We have our domains. I'm going to do this in every class for the rest of the spring semester. Archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. In Archaea and bacteria, they combine to form kingdom Monera. In domain eukarya, we have 4 kingdoms, which are Protista, fungi, Animalia, and Plantae. Sorry, I did these out of order. Plantae and then Animalia, because we go in an order of increasing complexity here. That's why they have to be in that order. So last week we talked about Kingdom Protista, and we saw a bunch of creatures in Kingdom Protista under the microscope on Thursday. Philip and I looked at those samples again here at the house, and we found a lot more swimming around, doing all of their protista activities. We looked up what they were. Most of them were diatoms. I'm going to post some of those pictures on the Padlet so you can see what we saw under the microscope. So in Kingdom Protista, we have 3 subkingdoms. We have some protists that are plant-like, and these are called algae. And they're plant-like because they do photosynthesis and they make their own food. We have some that are fungus-like, and they are fungus-like because they do extracellular digestion and they're decomposers. And these are called slime molds. And then we have some that are animal-like, and these are called protozoa. Remember from the Greek prote zoe, first life. And protozoa do not do photosynthesis. They are heterotrophs that eat other organisms. So this is what we've covered so far. Today, we're going to focus on kingdom fungi. Now, in kingdom fungi, we have 5 subcategories. We have zygote fungi. We have sac fungi. We have club fungi, chytrid fungi, and imperfect fungi, which basically is we don't know what they are or where they fit, so we're just going to call them imperfect. Okay, so this is where we're going, where we've been, and where we're going this semester. I'm going to erase this. And we are going to move on to general characteristics of fungi. And this diagram and these facts are going to be on your test. So, general characteristics of fungi are that they are decomposers. How is a decomposer different from a heterotroph? Heterotrophs are other feeding. Remember, autotrophs are self-feeding. They make their own food. Heterotrophs are other feeding. They eat other organisms. Decomposers are heterotrophs, but they have a special way of eating other organisms, and that is through extracellular digestion. So they secrete digestive enzymes outside of themselves. They're basically spitting on their food. It digests outside of the cell, and then they absorb the nutrients after it's digested outside of their body. Fungi are they can be unicellular, and they can also be multicellular. So if they're unicellular, they're just secreting enzymes outside of that one cell, letting it digest outside, and then absorbing the nutrients. If they're multicellular, like a mushroom, they're secreting their enzymes out of their main body and then absorbing those nutrients. So another word for decomposer is a saprophyte. Phyte, remember, in Greek means plant, and sapro means rotten. So sapros is rotten, and phuton means plant. So we should make this sapron futon to agree in gender, case, and number. And this means rotten plant. So they're saprophytic, they like to eat rotten plants. And some things in fungi, kingdom fungi, are parasites, and they grow on living hosts, such as athlete's foot. That is a fungus. So most kingdom fungi are multicellular, and there's some unicellular ones, which are really famous because our unicellular ones are yeast, which we use in making bread. So you're very familiar with these. Okay, how do fungi reproduce? They reproduce via spores. And they can reproduce actually in a number of different ways, sexually and asexually. So they're very successful as a kingdom. So they have lots of ways to reproduce. So mushrooms do mate in their mushroom fashion. The main body of a fungus is called the mycelium. I'm going to draw a diagram in a minute. The mycelium grows throughout the substrate, kind of like roots, but they're not considered quite the same as roots. Since roots are not the main part of the plant, they're just part of the plant, but in a mushroom or in a fungus, the mycelium that grows underground or in your skin, in the case of athlete's foot, that is the main body of the fungus. And the mushroom that we see is just the fruiting body that makes the spores. So that's called the mycelium. If you've read, is it A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket? They talk a lot about mycelium in that book. Is that the right book? Okay, so the mycelium, you need to remember this word. This is definitely on your test. Is the main body of a fungus. The cell walls of fungi contain the substance I mentioned in class. It is chitin. Chitin is found in the cell walls of fungi. It's also found in the exoskeletons of insects. It's a strange substance. Now, the cells in multicellular fungi can either be septate or non-septate. We saw this in Kingdom Protista as well. Septate cells have cell walls in between. Each cell has its nucleus and its organelles. Non-septate just do away with the cell walls in between, and they just have their nuclei and all their organelles free floating around, sharing everything in common. So this is septate and non-septate. Now, kingdom fungi is classified by how they form spores. So they all form spores. Everything in kingdom fungi forms spores to reproduce, but the way in which they form those spores is how we classify kingdom fungi. Okay, so we're going to go through, we've got 5 different ones that I wrote on the board in the beginning. I'll go through each one of those quickly. The first one is zygote fungi. And here I'm going to draw the diagram, which I'm pretty sure is on your quiz, of what fungus looks like. So zygote fungi are our common molds. You guys have a lot of experience with these. If you've left your bread for too long, or any of your food that turns green and looks like it's growing gross things, that's mold. The Greek word for fungus is mucus. So this phylum is called Zygomycota. For those of you who like Latin and Greek. So let's say this is our bread that we've left in the bag for too long, and it starts to get moldy. So here's our bread. Mold starts to grow with its mycelium here inside the substrate, or inside what it's growing on. So the main body of your mold is actually down in the bread, and that's the mycelium. These little strands of mycelium are called hyphae. Okay. Now, when this is ready to propagate itself and reproduce and send out a new colony of mold, it will form a fruiting body that forms spores, and that spore can go and replant itself somewhere else on the bread and form its own mycelium over there. Okay, so this is this one mycelium making a fruiting body, making spores and sending them out. This is asexual reproduction. This mycelium is not mating with any other one. So it reproduces by spores, and that's asexual. It can also send out something called a stolon, which is a runner. If you guys have Bermuda grass or you have goat head stickers, you've seen runners outside. It connects from one plant to the other along the ground. That is that plant propagating itself. And in the case of mold, this is called a stolon, and it can plant another hyphae over here, or another mycelium with its hyphae. And again, this is asexual reproduction. Okay, so it can propagate itself that way. And those are two asexual ways, via the sporangia, making spores, via the stolon, going and planting itself over here. It can also reproduce sexually. So if we have two mycelia here growing in your bread, and these two mycelia meet each other underground or in the bread, they can actually fuse and mate and make fruiting bodies that are the result of sexual reproduction. And those are called zygospores. So they'll send up a fruiting body with a sporangia and make their spores, and then those spores, which are the result of this union, will go and plant themselves elsewhere. There's no male and female in kingdom fungi. They call it plus and minus. Like we learned in 7th grade science, plus and minus are attracted to each other. It's an attractive force. Okay? So next time you see mold on your bread, you know what's going on. Don't eat it. All right, number 2 is sac fungi. And sac fungi is phylum Ascomycota. So remember, we're in kingdom fungi, domain Eukarya, kingdom fungi, phylum Ascomycota. Ascos means pottery vessel in Greek. We get cup mushrooms in this phylum, and morel mushrooms, if you've had those. These form spores within asci, which are little cups, which are in the fruiting body, formed via sexual mating. So these ones mate as well, sexual reproduction, and form spores based off of that. Also in this phylum are yeast, which I said are unicellular fungi. And yeast can mate and form sexual spores, but they can also reproduce, and more likely reproduce by budding. And if you were doing sourdough or making beer or wine for your project, you will be observing this under the microscope. You look at your yeast under the microscope and you can see them bud and form a little baby yeast off of themselves. And that's just mitosis, regular cellular division. So they make an identical daughter cell when they undergo mitosis. Okay? Athlete's foot is a parasitic sac fungus. And you guys know parasites are a form of symbiosis in which one party benefits and the other is harmed. Okay. Okay, number 3 is club fungi. I'm just going to keep writing till my chalk disappears. Look how small it is. Phil, look. It's the size of a pea. And club fungi are from phylum Basidiomycota. Basidion means, is base. It means base or pedestal. So Basidiomycota comes from that Basidion Greek word. And this is what we're used to seeing in your yard after it rains. You might see some of these mushrooms pop up. And the mushrooms that we eat, button mushrooms, or the classic white mushrooms, are from this phylum. So these guys do reproduce sexually more often than asexual. So they're 2 hyphae. So remember those under, in this case, underground. We've got the mycelium growing underground. These 2 hyphae can meet and fuse. They're a plus and a minus, and make their mushroom babies. It grows a button that pops open into a mushroom. It will grow, and the mushroom will come up and have its structures. So this is called the stipe, or the stalk. This is called the cap. And underneath here, if you've ever looked underneath a mushroom, we have the gills. And the gills are where the spores come out. Okay, you will be labeling a diagram like this on your quiz. So take notes on the structure of a mushroom. There are basidia, bases or pedestals inside of here that the spores come out of. These guys can form fairy rings in your yard. Our neighbor actually has one here. Every time it rains, like a ring of mushrooms will form, and then those will die off. The mushroom never dies because the main body of it is the mycelium underground. But when it dries up, those fruiting bodies will all disappear. And then the next time it rains, they'll come back, but they're a little bit further out. And then those will dry up. And then the next time it rains, your fairy ring will be even a little bit bigger. And each time it rains, they'll come back a little bit bigger. So those are kind of fun to watch. Don't eat them. You should never eat mushrooms in the wild unless you're a mushroom expert. Okay. So those are club fungi. I was planning to do spore prints in class today, where we can put a mushroom down on the paper, put a drop of water on top of the mushroom, and those spores will fall out and make a print on the paper beneath. But unfortunately, we couldn't do that today. Philip, you're going to be doing that project today. So that was club fungi. Number 4 is chytrids from Chytridomycota. I don't know what Greek word that comes from, but these have spores with flagella. So they're kind of unique. And then lastly, we have imperfect fungi. And this is phylum Deuteromycota. Anybody know what Deuteromycota? What Deutero means in Greek. So in the Bible, Deuteronomy, there's a book called Deuteronomy. It's the same root word, Deutero. Nomos means law in Greek. And so Deuteros nomos means the second law. It's the second time the law is given in the Bible. So here this is second mushroom or second mucus. Everything in this phylum, we don't know the method of reproduction. So they're assuming that it makes spores, but we actually don't know. So we just lump them all together into this last phylum and kind of call it other. Okay? In this phylum is penicillin. And also camembert and Roquefort cheese. So a lot of cheeses are made with fungi. Okay, so those are our 5 phyla of fungi. And there's one more thing I want to mention that definitely is on the quiz, and that is our symbiotic fungi. There's some famous fungi that live in symbiosis with other creatures or other organisms. The first one is called a lichen. These are on the test. Lichen is a symbiosis between a fungus and an algae, and the plural is alga, if you know your Latin endings. The fungus, so these are from two different kingdoms, kingdom fungi and kingdom protista, the plant-like protist. The fungus supplies the structure, and the algae provides, since it's a plant-like protist, it does photosynthesis, it provides the food. And lichens are organisms that grow on the outside of trees, like on tree bark. The fungus will provide the structure that kind of holds onto the tree, and then the algae will provide the food by doing photosynthesis. So they live together happily. The other symbiotic relationship that is very important to us is called mycorrhiza. And this is a symbiosis between a fungus and plants. This fungus grows on the roots of plants, and like all fungi, it grows within, its mycelium goes within the substrate it's growing on, so it actually invades the cells in the root of the plant. But it helps the plant take up nutrients that would be hard for the plant to get otherwise, things like copper and magnesium that are in the soil. It helps those with the uptake of those nutrients into the plant's roots, and in turn, it eats some of the food that the plant makes. So the plant feeds the fungus helps with the uptake of minerals, and they live in symbiosis together. All plant roots do have this type of symbiosis that helps them live and thrive. So that covers our Module 10. We have lab on Thursday. We're planning on having a guest speaker. However, with the weather, I'm not 100% sure if that's still going to happen. If it doesn't, we will do the labs from Module 10. So I'll see you on Thursday. Keep working. Thanks for watching.
Oh, do you tell them to smash the like button?
Smash that like button.